Good morning, everyone. How are you doing? For anyone that doesn't know, I was in France for most of January and February, but I am back in England in my little office, and I'm back with the lovely Claire. Hey. So that seems a good way to get back into the country. So Claire, I will hand over to you to introduce yourself. At least I say it wrong.
You can say whatever you like, it's fine. Well, I would say I did not have quite as a glamorous January and February. I was in sunny / very rainy Nottingham for all of that period. Hi, I'm Claire Lowrey Hubbell. I'm the founder of Impactful People. I work with leaders and leadership teams where I focus on building leaderful organizations. And this is really about developing those behaviors that we should show up with day in, day out, relevant of our titles. That's very high level me and what I do.
Yay, thank you for doing that. I've actually been on your podcast before, yes. So this is the return invite. We had a very interesting conversation. Definitely go and check out Claire's lovely podcast. But yes, I always like to have, sometimes there's tenuous links to periods, but I think if you're talking in HR and any way about leadership, there is always that link. So we're going to get onto that. But I do like to start by asking, because I think it's so interesting of especially sort of our generation, like, and how that has changed now slightly, maybe. I don't know, I hear lots of different stories. So can you remember your first period or your sort of, that story?
100%.
Yeah.
So I remember it very well, partly because it happened the day I first ever had to have a tooth removed at the dentist.
Oh,
yes, it was a really eventful day. I was really nervous about it. I've got a twin sister. She'd had to have quite a lot of dentistry done when she was younger and had gone to the orthodontist. She'd had quite a few teeth taken out this time, and I remember her being so lovely and kind. It's going to be fine, but I was really anxious about it. And I got home and I'd come on my period for the first time. I remember going to say to my mum, there's something in my underwear, and she was like, oh, it's okay, don't worry, you've started your period, I'll go and find some pads. And by the time she'd come back into the room, I'd taken my underwear off, and she very kindly said to me, it's much easier to put the pads on if you keep your knickers on. So that is my main takeaway of my first ever period.
Oh, I love that. Somebody sent me a little reel the other day. I'm so sorry because I've forgotten who it was. But it was basically, they're doing it in schools now. It was a woman. She had like a pair of pants over her jeans, and she was teaching the class like what to do if you got your period. Did you send it to me?
I don't think I did send it you. I don't know why I didn't, because it is the kind of thing I normally send you, but I have seen it and it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's so good. I can imagine like that kind of conversation just came to mind, like keep your pants on.
Yeah. I've also got, it brings back memories of some of my friends. I used to play a lot of sport, who one of them in particular, the first time she ever went to a physio, and what she thought he meant when he said, can you get undressed please? It brings back memories of that.
Yeah.
Slight misunderstanding of what the expectation was.
I know, like as a literal spicy person, I have been in those situations before. I'm like, I need very specific instructions, please, or I'm really going to take that much too far.
Oh, it keeps us on our toes. Humbles us, definitely. That is for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the thing there is, it's that assumption, isn't it, that we're going to we just know, because we're women, how to do the next thing that we need to do in terms of dealing with our periods.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know because we sort of talked about it on your podcast, but growing up, because you played hockey and you had quite difficult periods for a time, or they were causing lots of like pain, weren't they?
Yeah, I had a lot of issues with my back, some of which had been caused by playing hockey while I was growing. So I had a twisted pelvis. But I remember saying to my chiropractor, that how much pain I used to get, how much worse my back pain used to get when I was on my period. And he said, you should never have back pain when you're on your period. And he was the first person who'd ever said to me, and I've been having years of this really bad back pain. And after I'd had treatment with him, I've never since had back pain on my periods.
Yeah, that's and I remember that so clearly at the time, because I was like, that very rarely happens. Like, the gender pain gap is real.
Mm,
Like, a lot of time our pain gets dismissed as women's problems, sort of low pain tolerance or whatever it is, just part of being a woman. But for someone to actually stand and say, actually, no, that's not, you shouldn't be
normal.
experiencing that level
Yeah.
of pain. As I say all the time, a period pain is common, but it's not
Mhm.
normal, in that we shouldn't be experiencing, deep levels of pain. Yes, there'll be cramps and lethargy, and we might need to take some paracetamol, but if it's debilitating,
Mm.
or we're chugging paracetamol or taking time off work, like that needs more questions. That needs someone else to, like, look a little bit deeper than just saying
Yeah.
women's issues.
And I
um
probably said this to you at the time. I remember matches, like being on your period when you're playing high level sport is stressful enough anyway. Even like the kit is a big factor and things like that. That it's just taking up mental load that takes away from what you're there to do. It's same in the work
yeah,
environment. But I remember, I think I said this to you before. I remember one match. I was playing club. We were in the Premier League, and I'd had such a bad night's sleep because I'd been having sweats. My first day of my period was always, or the day before was always really, really
yeah,
painful. And I'd taken so much pain relief, I couldn't feel my face walking onto the pitch. And I remember laughing with my friend whose house I'd stayed with the night before. And I was like, oh God, my face is so numb. And we were just laughing about it. But I'd then go and play a hockey match and deal with whatever I needed to deal with afterwards. And it was just the fact that, I used to double up on paracetamol and ibuprofen. I'd do it every 2 hours because when it was at its worst, you just can't concentrate on anything other than that pain.
mhm,
And the fact it's like you said, it's not just about in your womb, pain down your legs, all
yep,
sorts of different impacts that are happening in your body that just make doing things that you would normally be able to do fine really hard. And one of the
yeah.
big things I've heard athletes particularly talking about a lot recently, which I think is so important, is
I was just gonna say,
how how we have to prepare our bodies for or plan our training around our cycles. So there are periods within your cycle,
yeah,
where you just can't lift the weights that you would normally lift. And if we're not putting the cycle lens on that, we end up thinking it's a performance issue, or maybe we didn't push ourselves hard enough, or whatever, or maybe it's our nutrition, this, that, and the other. But actually, that it's understanding our physical cycles and the impact and what type of training we can do at different periods. And I apply very similar principles now, run my own business, in terms of I know from an emotional perspective when I should do different types of work. And I wish I'd known that years ago.
yeah. It's wild as well. And I was gonna say, my my DMs or whatever on LinkedIn and Instagram, and people keep sending me, and I love when people send me messages. Like, I always get like, oh, I saw this and thought of you, or something about a period,
Yeah.
and I love it. Or people message me like, I just came on my period today and I thought of you, and I'm like, oh, I love
Thanks.
that. But recently there's been quite a few conversations, like through the Olympics as well,
Mm,
of like athletes saying, you know, I did this today and I was on my period, and it was hard and tough, and I had to focus on what I was doing. I think there was an ice skater as well that said, I'm on my period and then I've had to do all this stuff and wear this outfit.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
really, really stressful. And I love, like, this is the most amount of messages I've had after sort of, an Olympics or large sporting event,
Mm,
where there have been open conversations about,
yeah.
people being on their periods and how they're experiencing that. And it does need to be a conversation. Like, you can't just ignore that. It's hugely impactful. And I think it has to be a consideration.
Mm, absolutely. I think it's the same in work and sport, right? If you want to be the best you can at that thing, then how much time do we spend knowing what our bodies need and how we respond to it, what type of food we respond best to? Like I was definitely a captive of the generation of carbo load before a match. And it took me years. It wasn't until I was training full time really, and I was trying some different things out, that I realized actually that was the worst thing ever for my body. I got really lethargic. Whereas if I had really high protein, low carb meals before a match, my energy levels were up here. But it's this, I think there's a few things. One, understand your own body, and those really general brushes that are swept across everybody to say, well, this is what we think is the right thing to do, so that's right for everybody. And it's just not. Our bodies are so individual and change at different periods of our cycle as well. It needs different things.
100%. But if we look at the amount of people that are now sort of talking about it in sporting events, that is a reflection that they are having those conversations within their team, within their coaches, with their coaches. Sorry, that's being acknowledged, and there's so many people that are training cyclically in women's football. Different times of the cycle, we're prone to like different types of injuries and things, which is interesting. And here's our tenuous link. No, it's not tenuous. It's actually very, very relevant. But if like major athletes, professional athletes, the Olympics, Winter Olympics, are having these conversations, professional football teams, they're training with their cycle, and they can now go to their coaches and have those conversations. Why are we not doing this at work? Because it's the same impacts, the same cognitive load, having to deal with the things, or lack of cognitive function, depending on like where you are in your cycle. And these things are impactful, and if we're considering them in major sporting events, like, we need to talk about them at work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few layers to it. With all this stuff, it's never totally black and white, is it? I think there's still, I don't know why, because it's just happening all the time. The level, why the taboo is still there. I saw your post about your invoice getting rejected.
They wouldn't pay it because it said menstrual on it.
Yeah, which is madness, right? It's just a biological function. So I do just think there's a lot of stigma around it still, or discomfort in talking about it, and people being like, oh, that's just something that the ladies deal with in their own time. I think there's also the growth in our understanding of how it impacts. I think there's a big, like we were just saying a moment ago, I wasn't taught any of this at school. I'm sure you weren't too. We get told, here, these are tampons, these are sanitary towels, this is how you use them. That's what you get taught, and it's at secondary school. Whereas we know girls particularly starting their cycles earlier now. So a lot of primary school children. So there's no education around it. We don't get taught about our hormones and our cycles. We literally just get taught about the practicalities of what to do if you're bleeding, which is the tiniest part of this whole process. So I think there's a big piece around education, and also us as women knowing ourselves, because as we were talking about earlier, we all have different experiences as part of those cycles, and knowing what our norm is, not just from a pain perspective, but an emotional perspective, or like you said, brain function, what is our norm? And then that helps us identify the changes as well. But it also makes it easier for us to talk about it with people if we know what those things are about ourselves. But I think there's a big piece here, as we were talking about, is trust and psychological safety. And I'm a big believer your role as a leader is to amplify your impact through others. And you can only do that if it's a safe space for people to talk to you openly, or ask questions, or challenge. And we're if we put it in the sports context, the leaders are fundamentally the coaches. So if your players can't talk to you about things that are impacting their performance, how can you help them be the best and perform at their best level?
I think that analogy went much better than we ever could have imagined.
I know. Shoehorn it in.
No, but it's so true. Leaders are like coaches, and they don't seek to sort of and also the other thing is, they're coaches. They're not the team players. They're not the ones playing the game. They're the ones coaching. And I think like let's really roll with this one, because that's not what when you talk about shared leadership, or you're not doing all the things yourself. You're delegating, you're teaching a team how to be the best team, and you're not going to play the match yourself, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I no matter how tenuous this link is, this is what fuels most of the work I do, because so much of my experience is a mix of what I learned about leadership in sports environments. So I captained the Welsh hockey team for a period of time, and vice captained, and we had no funding. You're like the middle between your management team and the players, and a lot of it I didn't realize I was doing a lot of what people managers and those middle leadership layers end up doing within the world of work. So I learned loads through that, and then also learned loads within tech and then the people space. And actually it's at the end of the day, it's about people, it's about groups of people trying to achieve a shared goal, and the ways in which you go about doing it, there's a lot of similarities. And I, as we've just touched on, believe so strongly in the collective performance and the collective power and collective leadership. And this is where the whole leaderful organizations idea comes from, because we all have a capacity, and we've talked about this before. We all have a limit, and if we want to grow, if we want to scale, if we want to increase our impact, there is only so far we can go with that on our own. The only way we multiply that is through others and with others. So I spend a lot of time talking to leadership teams about how they show up as a collective, because that is what drives things forward. And it's not to say when you're doing this, there's no conflict or anything. Like, it's not about removing the difficulties. It's about agreeing how you handle them and then how you move forward together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting because I think I must say the word capacity about, I don't know, at least 10 times a day. I think it's my most overused word. But it's there's a lot of things. It's not just about your energy or your bandwidth. I don't know. It just is a really good word to kind of describe it. And that's a lot of what my work is about managing that capacity and understanding when you have capacity for different things, and when you can take more load on, when you need to take stuff off. And this is that's all performance, you know. That's you know, how we're able to you know, conduct ourselves, or you know, like how much we you know, it's all to do with our performance. Sorry, my brain, I was reaching for a better word there, but never mind.
It was a good one. I think it's such a big opportunity as well. This is how I try and talk about it with people, is it's an opportunity to elevate others, give them opportunity to grow. So if you know the things that either you're not great at, don't give you energy. Now, don't get wrong, there's always elements of that we have to do as leaders. But if there are other people in your team that are super energized, or that they've got loads of capacity to take that thing on, then what an amazing opportunity. And this, again, is the collective. There's no one perfect leadership style. There is no one human that's great at everything. We need those diverse skills, opinions, viewpoints. And actually, the bit that we are not great at, and this is what I spend my time doing, is being intentional about how we bring those people together to get the best out of them. And it is a great opportunity to help people grow and step up, and also enables you to then go and focus your energy on the stuff that you're going to be really impactful with. So I think we should see it as an opportunity to elevate others, rather than being critical of ourselves because we don't have capacity to do something.
Yeah, exactly that. And I totally agree that I don't think there is like one true leadership style. I think it really depends on your team, and really sort of leaning into your specific team dynamic, and that is going to be designed by the type of people that you have in there, and the type of needs or abilities that people have within that team. And so each team's going to look really different. And I think that's, if we kind of need to walk away from sort of blankets, frameworks, and, you know, this is how we do something, and everyone kind of has to fit in that mold, and think like, okay, so you've got whatever 10 members of your team, and actually getting really, and our other favorite word, curious, get really curious about that team, in the dynamics within that, where people thrive, where they excel, and where they need extra support, and designing how you work and how you meet expectations and deadlines and things with the dynamics and capacity of the team that you have. I mean, it sounds really simple, but that's not really what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think, oh, I've got so many thoughts on that. First, I'm going to link this back to our analogy, so we can keep running with it. I think this was so prevalent in sports, right? So you have some players who need to be screamed at, right? That's what they respond to. If you try and go nicer with them, they just don't process it. Then you've got people like me who, if you scream at me, I'm going to zone out. I need more of a support, what I feel is a supportive approach. The screaming felt supportive for other people, but we all needed different ways of receiving feedback, giving direction, those kind of things. And that was what our coach did. They spent time understanding the needs of the players. That doesn't mean they entirely changed their leadership style. They had a core style that we all had to work within. But then when we were had moments where they would lean in certain styles more than others, depending on what the team needed. And that's very much the same as leadership. I think it's a really, really difficult role, is one of the things I always like to highlight. I think being a leader is incredibly difficult because there is so much accountability and responsibility that comes with it. But which is also why you should only do it if you actually care about doing it well.
Yes.
I think the flip side of this is there's still so much I don't know, myths around what it means to be a good leader, I think. And I do an Emerging Leaders Academy, and the first session is a myth busting of like, what actually does it mean to be a leader? Because I do think there's this perception of, still, maybe not as bad as it has been in the past, but of what a good leader looks like, or what you have to be like to be a leader. Like, you have to be charismatic, and you have to be this, and you have to be that. And it's just not true. And otherwise we'd just end up with one type of leader all of the time. And that's not how the world operates, or what people need. So there is a big part of knowing what you're really good at, what gives you your energy, what you are most impactful at, and leaning into that as much as you can. And that awareness of perhaps where there's challenges, or you've not got experience of doing certain things, but then it shouldn't be seen as a weakness. It should be seen as an opportunity, again, to leverage those skills from others around you. And I think it's that whole, you need to have all the answers, you have to be the expert at everything. Nobody is. Absolutely nobody is. In fact, I think one of the most important skills, which we've just talked about, is curiosity. Ask more questions. Simple.
I totally agree. And I think slowly we're moving away from people just being promoted into positions of leadership because you go up, rather than thinking about, is this a person that has the capability or desire to be a leader? Maybe they get promoted sideways, for example. I think we're starting to move away a little bit from that, and leadership being like more intentional.
Definitely.
And sorry.
No, carry on.
I was just going to say, and I do definitely think it must be so hard, and there is so much, if you just scroll through LinkedIn, you'll find about 20 posts on different things that leaders should do. And I just think that just sounds vastly overwhelming, but I think you can't go wrong with a little bit of curiosity and asking the questions and being okay with not having all the answers. It's it was 101 that I used to work in hospitality and stuff, or if you don't know the answer to that was another lifetime, if you don't know the answer, just say I'm not sure, but I'll get back to you.
That's fine.
I don't know, but I'll find it out, and and then we'll have a conversation about it. I say that all the time, especially in my work, talking about in organizations, how we're having conversations about periods. And that's a new conversation to be had at work, and not everyone's going to have the answers. In fact, maybe few people will have the answers. It's always going to lead to a situation where you're going to have to find out more information, or do a bit of digging, or see what existing policies say, or learning or educating yourself somehow. That's okay. That's part of leadership as well. And you kind of only, you you kind of only need to be a page or a couple of pages ahead to kind of to be in that position to feel, you know, you don't have to have everything, you just need to be, those couple of pages ahead.
I think as well, so I totally agree. I think you can't just say this is a set of things that all leaders have to do, because I do think there's a big context bit here around what different types of businesses as well as different teams need from their leaders too. So I think there's a couple of things. One, I don't think businesses are always great at being explicit about what their expectations are of their leaders. I think that's one of the first things I recommend people do before they start overlaying other things, is just be really clear about what your expectations are of leaders in your business, because it will change. And then I think actually the skills that are really important as a leader is being reflective, learning, and applying that learning. So, and that curiosity we touched on as well, because it's so contextual, different scenarios that you're going to be in. You need to be able to think for yourself. You need to build those peer groups where you can share and learn from each other. That for me is like the real power, is not being in it alone, because there will be someone else who has gone through something similar and have good or bad experiences they can share with you. And I think I work with a lot of startups where you can be in standalone roles, or it might be your first ever leadership role, but you might have never managed a team before. And suddenly all these expectations of you are there, probably not communicated, by the way, they're just underlying.
Yeah.
And there are communities out there of people that are in similar situations that want to support and help each other. So I do think that collective side is so important in terms of helping us carry the load. And to your point as well, businesses are doing a lot more, I think, around creating progression for individual contributors without having to go into a management role to progress, because there was all that data, wasn't there, around 83% of managers are accidental managers, meaning they've never had the training or support to actually do the role well. So, and I think businesses obviously seeing the impact of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I think when you do manage to kind of get that dynamic in place, and you have that collaborative, that's the word, a collaborative effort. Yes, you may be the leader, but you're heavily relying on your team to kind of execute that and finding the best people. I think that's really what, you know, a lot of what psychological safety looks like, where we feel not just that we can trust the person sort of leading the team, but that we're trusted. I think that that is still a big piece that needs to be worked on, is that I still hear stories from people that work at home and they have to do their, like, you know, assembly check-in because they're not trusted. And I'm like, wow, that's just, I think we've still got some way to go when you know, a lot of the time people are asked to trust in their management or in their leadership teams, but are not trusted themselves. And I think that needs a little bit of finessing still.
Yeah, I think often a lot for this always comes down to me of clear expectations. So our managers setting clear expectations for their team of how they expect them to show up. And then there's a bit around, what are we actually measuring? Are we measuring time spent at a desk, or are we measuring impact? Like, what's actually more valuable for the business? Let's just check ourselves on that. And then the other big thing that I do a session on as well is delegation. And it's called delegation of responsibility versus tasks. Because I think what we see a lot of is delegating tasks. But that means as leaders, we're still carrying that weight and mental capacity around it. If we get better at delegating responsibility, that is one, showing the trust. And you can put guardrails around that. Like, leaders should put guardrails around things so they can support and know if things are going in the right direction or not, and they can help move that forward. But yeah, I do think, and again, I do think some of that goes back to that feeling of, I've got to have all the answers. So if I delegate it to someone else, I won't have the answers. And it just seems like madness. But I'd say this in all my training. I think a lot of leadership is basic human skills. But we are in this world that is constantly encouraging us to move faster, do more, go, 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 go. And I really think we're at a pinch point where we need to slow down, speed up. And I don't mean stop. I just mean ask the curious questions, get aligned around what we're doing and why we're doing, and it being the right thing, understanding the risks and the compromises, and then go full force at it together. But I think we're just constantly pulled in all these different directions and always never doing enough and never moving fast enough. And that encourages us to stop asking the questions and stop pausing for a minute, just even 30 seconds sometimes, to check it's the right thing. So, I mean, I just think it's a big thing for leaders at the moment. It's just that pause. Doesn't have to be a stop, but a pause to just ask the question. Like, and as leaders, asking questions up as well. We need to be challenging up and managing up as well. And, you know, I think it would make all of our lives a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. And to your point about like what you're measuring in a team as well. And I think, and I've said this before, I really hate the word productivity, because I don't think it's the right metric. It's not the right thing to measure. Like, productivity is a byproduct, I think, of being like properly motivated, which I talk about a lot. And you know, if you're a neurodivergent person, or you're specifically a person with ADHD, there'll be like certain motivators that your brain needs. I use the NICE acronym a lot: novelty, intrigue, challenge, and emergency. They're very different motivating factors that maybe the rest of the team don't need. Equally, if you're you know, a person with a period, then there are going to be different times where you feel motivated, and it's that engagement and motivation piece. I think that's the metric that we need to look at and get curious about, like, what motivates a person. When do they feel most motivated? When do they feel like they have the capacity to be most engaged? And then you get the productivity, and everything comes with that. But there's that groundwork needs to be done before, I think.
Right. So I've got 7-year-old kids, and on our dog walk, my son forces us all to play Pokemon. He's got a great imagination. So we play Pokemon on our walk with the dogs in the morning. And this is literally making me think of that. It's like, if you were going into a Pokemon battle, you want to know what your Pokeballs and your Pokemon characters' strengths and capabilities are. So you know which to put into battle when, and who to back them up with, and which skills go well together. All of that. It's the same thing. Not suggesting you should throw your employees into Pokemon battles, but that's what's resonating for me, of this idea of the more informed you are about what gets the best out of your people, you know the best situations to leverage them in. And I do want to be clear that there's always going to be things that all of us have to do that we don't love, and it isn't the best use, but that shouldn't be 90% of the time. If 90% of your time was on all the stuff that is great for you, how powerful is that? And this for me goes back to skills mapping for your team. Like, what skills do you need across, and capabilities do you need across your team? And if there's people that have really strong skills in some areas and not in others, and you've got nobody who is good in that area, then that's highlighting to you there's a skills gap in your team. It's just basically like, you wouldn't get a football team of strikers. You just wouldn't. You would look at the skills that you need to build a high performing team, and that would be a range of skills and capabilities. And you wouldn't get a team of goalkeepers either. So it's all the same principles. It's just, I don't know why we struggle to apply it in the world of work so much.
Yeah, it's so true. So my brain went on a little adventure, and I had visions of your next leadership workshop, being Pokemon cards.
I was thinking people throwing Pokeballs. Yeah, yours sounds like we'll go with the cards.
Yeah, but imagine, like, if there was like a version where we had that, as each employee had that, they had their sort of, like, what is it, top trumps cards?
Yeah.
Like where we excel, where we need support, and okay, we're doing this project. Who have we got? You know, imagine if it worked like that. It just makes so much more sense to sort of utilize, you know, the capabilities of people for the like specific things, and you know, it would just be better, wouldn't it?
Massively. And it helps you get the best out of them. It helps you with resource planning. It helps you so many, and even like succession planning is a massive issue, I think, in terms of, and it's not that, I think part of the problem is people are trying to look for someone who's the same as the person that's already in that role and expecting the same of them. Like, get caught up in that sometimes. And there's this whole idea as well of, I talk a lot with startups about the thing that got you to where you are now is not going to be the thing that gets you to where you want to go next. And we need to be intentional. Change takes time. You can't decide 2 weeks before you want to get an investment round that you need to do all this stuff. So we need to be thinking about this. We need to be forward thinking about where it is we're going and what is the stuff that's going to get us there. I think there's a lot in there that, this is the thing with leadership, right? I think it's one of the simplest things in theory, but one of the hardest things to do practically, because there isn't a right and wrong. There isn't a, tick that, cross that, and it changes daily, maybe even hourly, depending on what's going on for you, what's going on for your team. It's really, really simple, but that applying it is the challenge. And I think for me, consistency is really important. I always remember this feedback I got early in my career that I cast a large shadow, and the person, it hit me hard when someone said this to me, but it was really fair feedback of, I am generally quite a bubbly, positive person. And they were like, when you were in that state, you bring everybody with you. They all want to follow you. They want to go where you're going. They want to be part of it. But when you're in your frustration phase or your negative phase, everyone feels it too. And I am very heart on sleeve. So early in my leadership career, had to think about, well, how do I draw the boundaries there where I still feel like I'm being transparent with my team, but I'm not casting my shadow over them in those moments, but I can still cast my optimism shadow over them at the times I've got that. And I think there's a piece around us being self-aware around those things too, of how do we bring people on that journey with us and make them feel part of it, without then, if we're not in a good place, putting that all on them.
Yeah, that is a good point. And yes, I can understand that as well. I can also be the big energy in the room, or everyone's like, what's wrong with her? That feels uneasy. So it's totally true. Oh my goodness. There's so much to be said, really, isn't there? But I think we've got, like, if we could just, I think if we could have, like, employee top trumps. Or Pokemon, lean into our curiosity and sort of just be aware of ourselves. I think at least being self-employed and going on that sort of journey, you are in a thought leadership capacity, so I can relate in that kind of sense. You do a lot of personal development work. Honestly, being self-employed has been like basically 5 years of therapy.
I feel you.
You learn a lot about yourself and about what you project and what you want to project. And I think I can imagine that it's the same, like, in organizational leadership positions, that it's a practice, isn't it? And you just have to, like, keep learning. And I think that the team analogy is well, that's Ted Lasso, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe in 2026 be swapped out for Pokemon, but it might have the same vibe. But I think if just being we said about, like, being humbled by things, there will be things that humble you, whether it's your body or you get things wrong, but you keep trying and just keep refining, keep leaning into the curiosity. I think, like you said, it's just about being a human.
Yeah, it is. And I do think that's where the community piece is so important. I'm a big believer in, like, manager communities and leadership communities where they feel like they're part of something together, because it is hard. And if you are doing the self-reflection, being able to talk that through with people is really important. And I'm not saying you're doing therapy sessions every week, but just being around people that are dealing with similar challenges or going through similar learning, or maybe have gone through it and they can give you advice, that feeling part of something together, I think, is really, really powerful. And I was just going to say, in terms of the running your own business, to go full circle back to our cycle conversation, I have learned in work that running my own business, there are certain things that I should definitely do at certain periods of my cycle.
Yeah.
And there are certain things I should absolutely not do at certain periods of my cycle. And a lot of it's to do with confidence. So my
Yeah.
confidence will massively shift at different phases of my cycle. And I know when I should really lean into doing the stuff that scares me, the new stuff, things I've not done before, and when I should just pause that for a week and do that then the following week. And actually that's been really empowering in terms of what I feel like I can achieve in my time at different stages. I can be way more effective because of that awareness than I think I was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're 40 minutes in and I could wax lyrical about that. But I mean, everyone knows I talk about it like all the time, my favorite subject. But absolutely working with like our internal rhythm rather than against it. I mean, that's there's no like woo-woo, there's nothing like, that's just good sense that we work with the capacity that we have at the, you know, any given time in our cycle. And the more that you are aware of it, the more you'll be aware of specifically what things like confidence. People always think about energy, but our mindset massively shifts, like everything. Our taste and smell shifts with our cycle as well. It changes in the second half, so we might be more sensitive to flavors. Everything changes. Our hormones dictate, you know, our internal landscape, our external, like how we project ourselves, how we feel about ourselves in the world, how we feel about the world. And so it just makes sense that we listen to that. And, you know, the world of 9 to 5, I said it along, it's like no shade, but it was created before women and people with periods were in the workforce because, you know, we weren't working at that time when 9 to 5 existed, and we just need to move away from those sort of paradigms of working into, you know, more intentional, thoughtful, curious.
But don't you think that so much of that comes from control? It's like I want to feel like I'm controlling things, so I know my employees should be at their desk at 9 and not leave till 5:30 or whatever. And it's a sense of security, but it's not actually telling you if what they're doing in that time is effective. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain industries where 9 to 5 probably is the right thing for what they're doing and the other companies they're engaging with. There's some industries where it's actually the worst thing ever. Like I still do have quite a few friends who are creatives, and it's like forcing them to work at 9. They were just like, absolutely not. I need to go outside in the morning and then I will work until 2:00 in the morning. But the quality of what they're doing was so much better than just forcing them to sit at desks at 9 a.m. when they didn't have the capacity to do the work that they needed to do. So yeah, I think it's specific to your industry, isn't it? But again, it's about that adaptability, not just assuming 9 to 5 is the right thing for every industry and every business.
Yeah. And I will say, fear is the worst motivator. Like, you will not get what you want out of your team or your business as a whole if you're using fear as a motivating factor, you know, and control. You might have a business, but it won't thrive because the people in it will not respond well to that. So, you know, we just got to be human.
Yeah. High five for that.
Yeah. Wow, that was cool.
I know. Like, we could probably do this for a whole day, actually.
Yeah. I know. So is there anything that we didn't cover in all the tangents that we went on that you wanted to say?
I think the only thing I would say is I just think there's an amazing community of women supporting women, and it can at times feel easier to speak to other women who also go through similar bodily changes as we do. And I think the more you can support each other and lift each other up and just also normalize or highlight that something's maybe not normal and people need to get help, I just think the power of those communities is huge. Now, there are also amazing men out there. I've got some of my male friends who are far better feminists than I am, and I genuinely need to learn more from them. They're epic, and they're not gay, amazingly. Everyone's always like, oh, they must be the gay guys. I'm like, no, they're heterosexual. So guys, it's possible. And I think for them, it's about being more curious. They've got mums, they've probably got sisters and partners, and there's women in all parts of their lives. The more curious they can be about the experiences that women are having, the easier it's going to be for us all to support each other, get the best out of each other, and just assume positive intent from people.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Where is the best place that people can get in touch with you? Because I'm going to put this on YouTube as well at some point. So, and is there anything you're working on that you want to mention?
Yeah, so here, LinkedIn or my website, impactfulpeople.co.uk is probably the best places to get me. And the thing I'd share is I am running an Emerging Leaders Academy that's kicking off in April. That's an open cohort, so opportunity to learn with other leaders from other businesses. So if you're interested, details are on my website, or just give me a shout.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Claire. This has been brilliant. I knew it would be. Yes, thank you very much for being on. And thank you very much for everyone that joined us. I know we had a few people. Oh, hi, Charlie. Sorry, I do try to get to the comments, but then I get distracted and forget what I'm saying.
We can have a look after, see what people
And yes, thank you for everyone who joins on the replay. And yeah, I will see you next time.
Thank you.